welcome to the Indie Lounge. I'm your host, Mandy Del Rio. Today we are here with the super talented singer-songwriter, blues rock guitarist, and producer, Mr. Todd Wolfe. Todd,
hi. How you doing, Mandy?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you, and nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great having you.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about a lot today,
Okay.
and then we're lucky enough to have a performance at the end, which I'm really excited
Sure.
about. So let's get to it and start from the beginning, because you are a guitarist, singer-songwriter. You've played with countless people. You have your own band,
Yep.
And you've produced too.
Yeah, I produce basically the stuff that I do. I haven't been able to get in and produce somebody else. Maybe one day, sometime soon, I can do that.
Yeah. Well,
It'd be great.
You're on your 8th?
Actually, the album that's coming out very soon will be a 9th album.
Yeah, okay.
And it comes out towards the end of September.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that, and also, yes, Long
There it
Road.
is. Yeah.
That's the next one.
That's it. That's the
Long
next
Road
one.
Back.
It's not even out
Okay.
yet.
Yeah.
You can feel how hot it is off the press.
I know. It's like getting burned over here.
Yeah, it
So we'll definitely get into that too.
Yep.
But I want to go back to the beginning. You know,
Sure.
You're from Queens.
I'm from
area.
Queens,
Okay.
Forest Hills. Actually, my particular neighborhood, whenever we talk about it, there was a lot of musical talent there. Simon and Garfunkel, Leslie West of the band Mountain, Ronnie Earl, who's a great blues guitar player, Waddy Wattell, who's a great session guitar player, was there for a while. The Ramones are from my neighborhood. Actually, when I was in high school, I used to work with the Ramones as sort of a roadie when they were playing down at CBGB's and all that.
kidding.
Yep. And
That's great.
I knew John very well, for many, many years. And yeah, there's a lot of music come from our area. The Spampinato brothers from NRBQ moved from the Bronx to our neighborhood. So, and then you have me.
That's a really creative neighborhood.
Yep.
Obviously, you were influenced. I read a little bit about your upbringing, and so your parents had a pretty good hand in your influence.
Yeah, they always, nobody played. They always had a radio on, and they had fairly diverse taste because my mom was from Texas, and so certain things she would like, and of course they overlapped. They liked the Dean Martins and Frank Sinatras of the days, and Neil Diamonds and things like that. So there was always, the radio was always on, and as a matter of fact, I have a single that I don't even know who bought it and who bought it for who, but when we were kids, there's a song by the Orlons called Don't Hang Up, and I'm in possession of the single, and it's something from when I was a kid. So yeah, there was always music being played, and then I found out later on that one of my uncles down in Texas, who I eventually met, he was a merchant sea marine, marine guy, and I finally met him when I was about 13, but I found out he could play and sing and all that. So there was some, from my mother's side of the family, there were some of the uncles down there could play a bit and sing.
It's amazing how genetics completely can play into music. Same with my family. We're all someone's got something musically going on. So
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And when did you start with instruments? And
well, the first thing I played, we had the first British invasion, with the Beatles and Rolling Stones and Animals, Dave Clark 5, Zombies, and all that, Yardbirds, and so at that point, I picked up a tennis racket and started strumming a tennis racket, and trying to sing like Paul, John, and George and all that. And eventually, in those days, usually you'd had some kind of guitar laying around in the house, but it was impossible to play. The action's really high, and these thick cables that can hold up a bridge, and you can't really get anything out of it. But eventually, I was such a fan of music, especially with the second wave of music that came, the Cream, Jimi Hendrix Experience, Fleetwood Mac, Jeff Beck, all that kind of stuff. And I got an electric guitar when I was 13, but I kind of didn't get into it yet. I would learn a song here and there and mess around with it, and then I really started to play when I was about 15 or 16.
Okay, and who were your influences were a lot of the British.
A lot of the British. As far as America at that point, in the late 60s, probably the biggest guitar influences were Mike Bloomfield and Johnny Winter. Whereas, and I consider Jimi Hendrix, even though he's from Washington, I consider them sort of like from the English wave because they put together the Jimi Hendrix experience over there. So, yes, then guys like Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton and Peter Green and Mick Taylor and Jeff Beck and, were coming over from England, and it was like, wow, and it's just something I wanted to do, they're just big influences. And of course, I was already a George Harrison and Keith Richards fan, and,
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yep.
I always find it amazing how the English captured the American blues.
Totally, yeah.
Almost better than
yeah,
we
Alex
did.
Corner and John Mayall, and even the Stones, when you look back at the Stones albums, if it's not like straight rock and roll like Chuck Berry stuff, it's straight blues things that they were doing.
Soul.
So it was a big appreciation, and they captured it. They got it.
They
The English
really
really,
did.
it kind of fed us back that whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a little bit about, do you like Muddy Waters? I think that was one of your influences.
I love Muddy Waters. I think my favorite out of all those cats, I would probably have to say Howlin Wolf. Like, Clapton always talks about Robert Johnson, what Robert does for him. For me, I would probably have to say Howlin Wolf, because he was one of the edgiest, and even kind of rock and roll, and he was kind of a wild performer too.
Yeah.
I heard that when he was younger, he used to climb the curtains of a theater or whatever it was, or just run around a juke joint. He's kind of a wild performer. So,
yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan too.
Yep.
Now your first band, the Troy and the Tornadoes.
Actually, that was the second one. The very there's actually even the very first band that we had that we called a band was Airborne, but that was just in the neighborhood. We played at our high school, and battle of the bands and things like that. The first professional band I had were also two Forest Hills alumni. They were actually younger than me, Steve Monash and Emil Samuels, and we had put together a band called Night Train. And that was the first band that we started getting out and playing the clubs in New York. Our first show was there was a club called Snafu in the Chelsea area of New York City. And we performed there, and then we actually got a few decent jobs. We opened up for a few different bands. I remember Walter Wolfman Washington was one of the bands that we opened up for, and started playing some of the New York club scenes, and that was in '79. So that's, I guess, the real first professional step, the nightclubs in New York in '79.
That is so cool. And you opened for like Greg Allman and the Neville Brothers.
Oh God, yeah. The other band that you mentioned, which sort of went through different name changes from Troy and the Tornadoes to T. Wolf and the Tornadoes, whatever it is, we opened for a lot of people. I mean, from Greg Allman to Dickie Betts to Robin Trower to Neville Brothers, Smithereens, Johnny Winter. I mean, there was just so many guys we used to open up for.
Yeah. What a cool little circuit in New York. I mean, especially at that time.
Yeah, in the '80s, I mean, disco kind of was hurting live music for a while, but then there was this whole resurgence with clubs like the Ritz opening up and the Peppermint Lounge and Danceteria, and they all wanted bands, and you had the Mud Club way downtown, and all of a sudden live music mattered, and it was a mishmash of things. Like at the Ritz, which we actually opened for a couple of acts at the Ritz, where we'd always go to see acts. You could see anything from Bow Wow Wow to Chuck Berry, to from Tina Turner to Haircut 100 or whatever, God knows what.
That's awesome.
Not that I would want to see Haircut 100. But
well, we're gonna take our first short break.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll talk about your work with how you progressed from there, and then working with Sheryl Crow, and we'll get into all that. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on a sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
we're back in the Indie Lounge with Todd Wolfe. So Todd, I want to get into some of the people you've worked with. You've worked with some pretty amazing people.
Yeah. Fortunate enough to, one person I worked with, Carla Olson, had a band called the Textones. And I knew of Carla. We had a mutual friend who was very good friends with one of the members of the band. They came to New York and loved their music, sort of like a Rolling Stones style of band, except led by a woman, and played guitar. And when I moved out to California, we eventually got together, and I was the first tour I ever did. We left the country. We toured Japan, and we would do shows around town. And it came about that Mick Taylor had played with her, from the Rolling Stones and Blues Breakers. And Mick didn't finish this particular album within an ace. And she said, "Do you want to come in and play on it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then she said, "You want to do some shows?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then eventually, all of a sudden, we're in Japan, So that was really cool. And then at some point, I returned back to New York. I'd been living out in California. When I returned to New York, I used Showplay Studios, where we've done actually our new album that's not out yet, and the previous album, and I've done albums there, Showplay Studios in Dover. And that's where I met Leslie West, who was guitarist and singer from Mountain. And he was a hero of mine growing up. And he was there recording. He was recording there as well, and we met. And all of a sudden, I'm playing on some tracks on his solo album. So I wound up playing on several tracks of 2 Mountain albums, and then 2 Leslie West albums. And he asked me to go on tour as a duet. And we went to Spain. We went to the UK, and it was kind of a trip. And we got to play in the New York area as well, a couple of shows. So that was an experience, being a duet, 2 guitar players, and you're playing alongside Leslie West, somebody you grew up listening to, Mississippi Queen and everything else, and was great. And then, of course, the one I spent the most time with and who's renowned is Sheryl Crow. And that came about through our mutual friend Scooter, and I met her when she was a backup singer for Michael Jackson. And she was appearing at the Meadowlands, the Michael Jackson tour in '87. Went backstage and met her, and she got very tight with Scooter. And whenever she'd visit New York, she'd come and she'd sit in with us. She'd do something like Chain of Fools, or just sing a blues or something like that. And so we were playing this gig one day, my trio, and she said, "Hey, you guys want to come to Los Angeles, and we'll write some songs and we'll record, and we'll see if we can get a record deal." At the time, the bass player that was playing with me, Eric Massimino, he had just come from Connecticut, and he didn't want to, he was starting to get entrenched in New York. And the drummer, originally from Texas, Michael Holloman, at first he didn't want to do it. I wound up flying to LA, and we started writing some songs. And then Michael, the drummer, did come out. And Sheryl and I wrote our first songs together. That was, I got out there late November of '89. And we started writing the songs, and we demoed them by January of 1990, and she shopped them around, and nothing came of it. And then that's when I started playing with Carla. And then the Sheryl thing came back around because she recorded the Tuesday Night Music Club album, and she needed a touring band. So she was putting together a band in St. Louis, and she came into LA, and she said, "Look, you want to try playing lead guitar in my band?" And I said, "All right." So I toured with her for almost 5 years. We wrote a couple of more songs together, and it was a great experience. I left because I had a record deal with A&M Records as well, and we had a band called Mojo Sun. And the record deal fell through and this and that, and we wound up just settling out of the deal, out of the contract. We had Cheryl's management and lawyers, and that never came about, and then started doing my own thing.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, though.
Yeah, the Sheryl thing was great. We went around the world quite a few times, and to think about all the people that sat in with us, let alone that we opened for. But because we did tours with the Eagles, we did dates with Bob Dylan. We played big festivals. We had people from Elton John jumping up on stage to Eric Clapton, of course, which Eric Clapton was a huge thrill for me. Lee Von Helm, Emmylou Harris.
Nice. Do you have any favorites who you came across?
Well, definitely Clapton was huge for me, because he sat in with us 3 times at the Viper Room in California and Los Angeles, and then he sat in with us in France, and that was great because it was 5 songs, and we really got to get into jamming a little bit. And then the last time was Shepherd's Bush Empire in England. one of the most memorable times besides the Eric was we did the VH1 honor show. Could have been the very first one in '95. And by that time, we've been doing dates, 95 or 96, we'd been doing dates with the Wallflowers. And a lot of times Jacob Dylan would come on stage with us after they were done towards the end of our set, middle of our set. And we'd do songs like The Wait or whatever. And The Wait became this song that we'd always do with Jacob and his keyboard player Rami. And then all of a sudden we have Levon Helm on stage with us doing it. And then Emmylou Harris. So at the VH1 honor show, we decided we were gonna play The Wait live. So we had Jacob Dylan, Rami from the Wallflowers, Levon Helm, who originally sang The Wait,
I know, that's awesome.
Emmylou Harris, and this guy by the name of James Taylor decided to sing backup.
Who's that?
Yeah, who's that? And then I couldn't do the solo on it that night because they had a keyboard player sit in on organ by the name of Steve Winwood, so I had to defer my solo to him. And so that's quite a high moment, having all those people for one song on stage.
So that is amazing.
So there's some great moments with Sheryl. Great
how
moments.
Fun.
Yeah.
And then when you got into, let's talk about your band with Justine and
Yep.
if you want to.
I mean, it's been this synthesis of players coming and going. And Roger Voss, the drummer, we met, and Roger's been with me for about 7 years now. And what's great about Roger, there's nothing fancy about him, but it's such a solid foundation, and he's really a great backup singer. And that came by accident. We were playing this little mini festival one day, and he was playing with another guy. And the guy's a good singer, and he's out there singing. And all of a sudden, we hear backup vocals, the bass player and I at that time. I'm like, where are the backup vocals coming from? And we look, and it's Roger, who had already been playing with me for about a year or two. I go, why isn't he singing backup vocals with us? So he started singing backup vocals, and then we met Justine. Justine came down to one of my jams, and she sat in, and I just heard this steady groove and bass. And a lot of times most of the time when we do appearances, we're a trio and we go on tours because of economics. And Justine also sings backup, so now we have 3-part harmony, and it makes a trio sound a lot wider.
Yeah.
And then of course sometimes the last album and the new upcoming album, we had John Ginty, a tremendous Hammond B3 organ player and piano player, has joined us, for certain shows and things like that. And it's great having John Ginty aboard. And now his albums and our albums were part of the same label, which is American Showplace Music.
Very cool.
It's becoming one big family there.
Yeah, well, you guys are amazing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely want to promote the last album was Miles to Go.
Miles to Go, yep. And we did that at Showplace Studios.
Right. And where can people buy it?
They can look up
Amazon
toddwolfe.com, and it's TODD and Wolf with an E, WOLFE. It's on Amazon. It's on a lot of different things. You can download iTunes or whatever. And the new album, this was actually released in the spring in Europe and the UK, but now it's being released in September here. And they can find that same thing, Amazon, whatever. They can go on our website. And then we're on Facebook too, Todd Wolfe Band on Facebook.
Okay. Okay.
And, yeah.
Great. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up, unfortunately. I can't believe this flew by.
Flew by. And they didn't even serve us the cocktails yet.
There's another break for that.
Yeah, there you go.
But when we come back, stick around because Todd's actually going to play live. So the show's not over yet.
Yes, and we need you to be here so I can play for y'all.
Exactly. But I'm going to wrap up now so we can give the forum to Todd. Thank you for watching the Indie Lounge today. If you want to learn more about the Indie Lounge, go to indieloungetv.com. Follow us on Twitter, Indie Lounge TV, and Facebook, Indie Lounge TV. Thank you so much, and please stick around for this amazing performance.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
I thought I could ignore it, and I wished it would just go away. It was my ADHD. And like many kids with ADHD, I didn't outgrow it. One of the issues I had was not being able to focus. I would read and I would reread the same sentence. You'd read it over and over and over again. And then 5 minutes later, I wouldn't know what I just read. It wasn't sticking with me. It wasn't sinking in. And that to me was really frustrating. As I got older, I was still having that issue. That's when I knew I needed to talk to the doctor.
If you were diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, you might still have it. Find out more. Take a quiz at ownyouradhd.com to help recognize the symptoms like inattention, impulsivity, hyperactivity. Then talk with your doctor.
I take responsibility for my ADHD. It's your ADHD. Own it.
Hi, this is Todd Wolfe again, and I'm going to play a song for you called I Stand Alone, and it's from our last album, Miles to Go. And it goes something like this. Washed up upon these shores to an island on my own. Don't know how I made it here, but I know I stand alone. No sweet caress to comfort me, no touch from a gentle soul. My heart it aches from loneliness, but I know I'm miles to go. Miles to go. Miles from home. Another room, an empty shell to rest these weary bones. I lay my body down to sleep, but my thoughts, they ramble on to a place that seems so far away. Laughter fill the air, smiling face, a warm embrace, the comforts of home sweet home. Miles from home. Miles to go. Whoa, lonesome road, please take me home from the miles that I roam. Sadness that surrounds me now will fade to the passing day, but guilt so consuming I'll carry to my grave. Can't explain the reasons why I choose this path I'm on, but it's a lonely and a winding road. One day that'll take me home. Miles from home. All alone, I stand alone. Miles from home. All alone, I stand alone.
God knows about where I'm from. No reprimands with a wicked tongue. Offered my hand with simple grace. Never slide another just to save face. Never took to some grand illusion. Steer clear of foregone conclusions. A simple plan with no great intention. A simple man, short on pretension. I was told a long time ago, always offer my hand. And when all else fails, I remember these words. Peace unto you, peace unto me. Everybody try to live free. In love with your heart, love from within. When hatred shows, never give in. Can't walk the walk till you stand in those shoes. Can't feel the pain till you cry the blues. Take your medicine when right may be wrong. But you fight the fight though you'd rather be gone. I make no claim to live like a saint. Feel no shame when I showed no restraint. Look through the eye of another's journey. Show compassion and a little bit of mercy. I remember from long ago, always give when I can. And when all else fails, I remember these words. Peace unto you, peace unto me. Everybody try to live free. In love with your heart, love from within. When hatred shows, never give in. Peace unto you, peace unto me. Everybody try to live free. In love with your heart, love from within. When hatred shows, never give in. Peace unto you. Well, I reckon we got time for one more song, so I'm going to do something for you. This is something from Miles to Go. And I'll just say it's this goes out to that girl from Sunnyvale, and the name of the song is Sunnyvale, and it goes something like this. I know I can make you love me. I can't even make you see. I'm trembling with desire for your gun, got knocking in my knees. Well, how can you be so blind? Can't believe it's under deaf ear. I'm screaming, crying from the rooftops about my love that rings so clear. I got the chills for you, honey, burning from the frost. No way to treat this man when he's hanging from his cross. Well, come take me down, come and take me to your heart. Please come take me down, take me deeper to your heart. Soon at the sound of a voice, live for the light of a moon. The Lord knows I'm gonna lose it if I don't get to see it real soon. I think I'm feeling a little bit of hope, maybe just a glimmer of a chance. Get down from here, find that girl, maybe find me a little romance. I got the chance